justice is a concept we all hold dear. When a crime is committed, we expect justice to be served, right? But sometimes, events unfold that make us question what justice really means. This story is one of those cases. Issei Sagawa, a man who committed a horrific murder in Paris, followed by acts of cannibalism, and then was set free. Yes, you heard that right. This man killed someone, ate them, and walked free. How? Let's dive into this chilling tale and try to understand how justice could be so twisted. Issei Sagawa was born in 1949 in Kobe, Japan, into a wealthy family. This wealth might seem like an advantage, but it did little to illuminate the darkness within him. He was born prematurely, so small that he could fit into his father's palm. Immediately after birth, he was diagnosed with a serious intestinal disease called enteritis, and from his very first days, he was fighting for his life. Thankfully, after several calcium and potassium injections, he recovered. However, this tough start planted the seeds of darkness in his soul. Growing up in a wealthy family provided material comfort, but Sagawa's inner world was far from peaceful. His childhood was, in many ways, like that of any other child. But when he started first grade, he realized he was different from the other kids. One day, he saw the buttocks of another boy and felt a strange urge: cannibalism. Yes, you heard that right. At such a young age, he began to harbor a desire to eat human flesh. This isn't something a normal child would feel. It's the kind of darkness that even adults would struggle to comprehend. Sagawa didn't know what to do with this feeling, so he kept it hidden inside, but over time, this dark desire only grew stronger. As Sagawa entered his teenage years, this dark urge deepened. One day, he admitted to having sexual relations with his dog. This is the first serious indication of his profoundly disturbed state of mind. He also began to develop a cannibalistic desire towards women. Imagine the kind of inner turmoil this kind of desire would cause. But Sagawa kept these dark feelings to himself, locking them away inside. The darkness inside him was building, turning into a ticking time bomb. At 23, while living in Tokyo, Sagawa followed a tall German woman to her apartment. While she was asleep, he entered her apartment with the intention of cutting off a part of her body to eat. But according to Sagawa, the woman woke up and pushed him to the ground, preventing him from carrying out his plan. This was going to be his first serious crime, but it failed. He was caught by the police and charged with attempted rape, but he never revealed his true intentions. Maybe, at that moment, no one realized the true darkness that lay within him. Perhaps this incident only emboldened him further. After all, the monster inside him was hungry for more. At 28, Sagawa moved to Paris to pursue a PhD in literature at Sorbonne University. Ah, Paris, the city of art, love, and literature. But for Sagawa, Paris would be the stage for a much darker plan. He saw himself as weak, ugly, and small, and decided to compensate for these deficiencies by consuming another person's life force. On June 11, 1981, he invited his classmate René Hartevelt to dinner under the pretext of translating poetry. Hartevelt, 25 at the time, was tall, beautiful, and full of life. Sagawa admired her, but at the same time, he was consumed by jealousy and a desire to eat her. He saw in her everything he lacked and wanted to absorb her beauty and vitality by consuming her. His desire was so intense that he decided to kill and eat her. That night, as Hartevelt sat at the table reading poetry with her back to him, Sagawa took his rifle and shot her in the neck. According to Sagawa, he fainted from the shock of what he had done. This shows that even he was momentarily overwhelmed by the horror of his own plan. But when he woke up, he realized he needed to follow through with his plan. Looking at Hartevelt's lifeless body, he decided to eat her. This wasn't just a murder, it was an act of cannibalism. However, Sagawa found that he couldn't bite into her flesh as he had imagined. His teeth weren't sharp enough to break the skin, so he decided to go out and buy a butcher's knife. This part really shows the level of cold-blooded planning involved. Imagine killing someone and then calmly going out to buy a knife to continue your gruesome act. It's chilling to think about. Sagawa then proceeded to dismember Harteveldt's body. He ate various parts, including her breasts, thighs, and face, either raw or cooked. His cannibalistic desire was so strong that he carried out this horrific act. But he didn't stop there, he documented everything by taking photographs. This wasn't just physical satisfaction, it was also psychological. He wanted to relive the experience over and over again through the photos. And the most disturbing part. When he realized that Harteveldt was on her period, he ate her clitoris whole. This raises so many questions. What kind of mindset drives someone to such an act? Sagawa's mind was so far from what we would consider normal that it's difficult to comprehend. He didn't like the smell of menstrual blood, so he stored the rest of her body in his refrigerator. Yes, a refrigerator, keeping a human body like leftovers for the next meal. As time passed, Harteveldt's body began to decompose. Sagawa realized that he needed to dispose of the remains and decided to dump them in a lake in Bois de Boulogne Park. He packed her dismembered body into 2 suitcases and headed to the park. But guess what? He was caught red-handed while trying to carry the suitcases. The moment a person's life is reduced to fitting into suitcases might be one of the most tragic moments imaginable. The police arrested Sagawa, uncovering his horrific crimes. Following his arrest, Sagawa wasn't tried in France. Why? Because he was deemed legally insane. This was perhaps one of the most controversial decisions. He was committed to a mental institution, where he remained for 2 years. But the story doesn't end there. The most shocking events began when he was extradited to Japan. Sagawa's father hired an influential lawyer, and this led to his return to Japan. Upon his return, Japanese psychologists determined that Sagawa was mentally sound. They concluded that his crime was solely motivated by sexual deviance. However, because the charges in France had been dropped, Japan had no legal grounds to detain him. The moment he left the soil where he committed the crime, he regained his freedom. At this point, the word justice seems to lose its meaning. In 1986, he was released. Yes, he walked free. So, what did this cannibal do after being released? Incredibly, he became a kind of celebrity in Japan. This part is truly mind-boggling. Sagawa, known for his horrific crime, was invited to various television shows. He even appeared as a guest speaker on some programs. He told his story, justified his actions, and people listened. The strange thing was that throughout this period, Sagawa seemed to have found a way to make a living from his crimes. He wrote books, gave interviews, and even acted in a film. In 1992, he played the role of a sadistic pervert in a Japanese film. His role, based on his own past, was a reflection of how society perceived him. But this fame didn't last long. While the media showed interest in him, some segments of society began to shun him. What he had done was simply unforgivable to many. Even though there was a prevailing approach in Japan at the time to rehabilitate criminals, Sagawa's case was different. The crimes he committed were unforgettable for many people. Until 1997, Sagawa appeared in numerous programs and events, even writing books about the murder. However, over time, the public's interest waned. As media attention faded, Sagawa became a marginalized figure in society. He struggled to find publishers for his writings, which was a major blow to him. He was even nearly accepted to work at a French-language school, but the staff's opposition led to his rejection. People resisted the idea of him playing an active role in society. This was a sign of how difficult his life would become. In 2005, Sagawa's parents died. This was another significant blow to him. He wasn't allowed to attend their funerals and found himself completely alone. He moved into public housing and began to struggle financially. He had to rely on social assistance for a while. Sagawa's life became a tragedy, as the weight of his crimes isolated him from society and any semblance of a normal life. In a 2009 interview with Vice magazine, Sagawa admitted that being forced to live as a killer and cannibal was a terrible punishment. This confession showed that his life was filled with regret and loneliness. But can such regret ever atone for the horrific things he did? this question is left open for the viewers. After all, human nature is complex, and in such a situation, we must question how genuine such remorse can be. In 2013, Sagawa suffered a stroke that left him permanently disabled. This marked another turning point in his life. He was now not only physically but also mentally weakened. He came under the full-time care of his brother and was entirely dependent on him for his daily needs. This period of his life, marked by isolation and physical decline, might be seen as a form of reckoning, though whether it was sufficient to atone for his past actions is something only history and society can judge. Sagawa's later years were spent in near total obscurity. He was no longer the media sensation he once was. The world, it seemed, had moved on, but the shadow of his actions lingered. The man who had once shocked the world with his gruesome crime was now living a quiet, almost forgotten life. On November 24, 2022, Issei Sagawa passed away in a hospital in Tokyo at the age of 73 due to complications from pneumonia. His death marked the final chapter in one of the most disturbing criminal cases of the 20th century. Yet, even in death, the questions surrounding his life and actions remain. Was justice truly served? Can a person who committed such heinous acts ever find redemption, or should their legacy be forever marred by their crimes? Sagawa's story is more than just a recounting of a grisly murder, it's a reflection on the nature of justice, punishment, and human morality. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the legal system and the ways in which society deals with its most deviant members. Issei Sagawa's case is not just about one man's descent into darkness but about the societal and legal structures that allowed him to walk free. His life and actions continue to spark debate and reflection. As you think about this story, consider the broader implications. What does it mean when justice fails? How should society respond to those who commit unimaginable acts? And can someone like Sagawa ever truly be forgiven or rehabilitated? These are the questions that linger long after the details of the case have faded from memory. This story isn't just about a crime, it's about what happens when the systems meant to protect us falter, and the chilling reality of what can slip through the cracks. If stories like these captivate you and make you question the world we live in, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. There are many more intriguing and thought-provoking stories awaiting you.